Welcome, everybody, to Reinvention Conversations from the Front Porch. I'm your host, Hollis Thomases, and this is episode 37 with Elizabeth Cepeda. Today is June 23rd, and we are going to have fun. So, Reinvention Conversations from the Front Porch is brought to you by Reinvention Works. What we want to convey to you is that reinvention is a choice, and our programming is designed to help empower people and businesses to take control of their next future through tools, networking, information, and education like this webcast series. So that's why we do this. And so let's get going. I'm going to stop my screen share and introduce you to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can you say hi to everybody for a moment?
Hi.
There she is. So, Elizabeth, I want to give you a toast for joining me tonight.
Yes. I have some Chardonnay here.
Chardonnay in a coffee cup, no less.
Yes.
We should say that you were recording from you're recording this from a late night at work.
Yes.
So thank you for that, too, for the
Oh, no problem.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to tell your reinvented story, and then I will interview you so people can get really underneath the hood and hear what your reinvention process was like, okay? So
Sounds good.
I'll give you the floor for about 5 minutes. Here you go.
Yeah. So kind of like I'll start like when I was going into college, when I, decided. I always knew I wanted to get into like something travel related. But at that time, there wasn't anything really much. So I ended up doing international business. And I went to school for a semester in that, hated it. It was horrible. Realized I hated business, all aspects of it, the competitive side, everything. So then I transferred and I ended up doing English and communications, which was something I was good at, but it wasn't my passion. It was something that was interesting and I was good at it. So I ended up majoring in that in college. So that's how I ended up in publishing. So I worked for John Wiley & Sons for a while, and it was great. It was like 4 years. And then while I was there, I decided, I finally want to do this travel thing. So I went to school and majored in travel and tourism management, got my master's degree while I was at Wiley. That was tough too because they didn't pay for it. It had nothing to do with publishing. So I had to do that, pay for it on my own, but it was great experience. It was wonderful. And then, so after travel and tourism management, so after majoring in that, I didn't know what I was going to do after. I didn't want to stay in publishing, but it was comfortable. And I remember like it was yesterday, I had just purchased a condo. So I was kind of hesitant in going into a new direction, but I have this master's degree now and I kind of want to get into the travel world. So I ended up quitting my job out of the blue, and it happened because, I had like this mean boss. And it was just like one day of clarity for me, and I just ended up quitting. And again, I was kind of closing on my condo, and there's so much going on, and that was a lot for me. But I think once I did it, it was like action mode I went into. I just started emailing my school teachers and just doing everything possible to get into. Now I'm getting, I want a new job. So I did interview for some publishing jobs because that's what I was good at and that's what I did. And I had great interviews. I had already 5-6 years of experience. So with publishing, but I just decided, it was hard, but I had also my teacher, which was Lorraine Cilio, who's my boss now, actually. She was my teacher at NYU, and I had emailed her. So I'm interviewing for this publishing jobs, but I'm also talking to Lorraine about a possible job, and she worked in travel research. So I was like, at least it's travel related, so it would be good. So, I ended up being in between two jobs, which was the nice publishing cushioning job, and it was like benefits, great. You know, it was like a step up from where I was. And then the temp job that Lorraine offered me, she could only offer me a temp job at that time. It was hourly. I didn't have benefits. I didn't know how long I was going to do it for. So that was like a big time in my life, and I'm closing on this condo. So of course I want the benefits and kind of the security, but I think that was the time that I wanted to kind of change and do something else. So, right. So this is my moment, but I'm not so much a risk taker. I'm kind of like, I need to be comfortable and I need to have security and I need to have 8 months of rent in my bank. I'm that kind of person. So that was really hard for me. But I think because I had already taken the first step of quitting my job, I was like, then I need to do the next step and do something different, right? I went to school, I majored in I had got my master's in travel and tourism, and now I need to do something totally different. So I took the temp job, and I was there for 2 months, and I was still interviewing for other places. But now I'm at this point, I'm clear, and I'm only interviewing at like travel places, like, hotels and things travel related. But yeah, I was there for 2 months at my temp job, and I got hired full time. And that was 9 years ago. Here I am. Yeah. So that was a really pivot moment for me. Like, that was so good for me, because before that, I was used to being comfortable, and it was hard for me to change. But I think at that point I knew, like, I had to do something different. Yeah. I can't.
I muted myself.
I'm like, I
can't. So I started to say, like, the first thing that comes to my mind as I am hearing your story, like, I actually start feeling literally right then, 2 minutes ago, the anxiety of, I'm sure you had debt from your master's degree.
Yeah.
Just closing on a condo.
Mm-hmm.
You dive off the deep end and quit your job.
Yeah.
And then you don't take a real job offer. You go for the temp thing.
For the temp.
Thinking, okay, so this Elizabeth must be a real big risk taker. And then you say the line, and I'm not a risk taker. So I just have to ask you, yes, you felt like you got this degree and it was time to change, but how did the desire to change win out over all of that risk and that discomfort?
I don't know. I just feel like I wasn't totally happy at my job. I was, like I said, I had like this odd boss, and I had shifted around the company for a while, and I ended up with this person that wasn't very good, and I was just not having a good time at work. So I think I thank her now, because I think that was a big part of it, because I was like, well, I'm miserable, one, and it's kind of, I'm kind of bored at my job, at what I'm actually doing. So I think it was a moment that, okay, what are you going to do about it? Like, you've been here 4.5 years. Yes, it's comfortable. I was about to hit my 5-year mark, which is a big thing for that company, especially. But I thought, when am I if I don't do this now, when am I going to do it? But I think me not being a risk taker, I think it helped that I was just uncomfortable with both my boss and the job I was doing. If it was one or the other, or maybe it was the job that I was doing, I don't think I would have kind of like taken that risk and just left,
Right.
Not at that point, not at that moment.
Right.
Eventually, but not at that moment. So I kind of thank her now, because that was what I needed.
Sure. So that was the one hurdle. Like, you quit your job and you had your debt and you were getting more debt. But then to take the temp job, did you take the temp job because you figured you had nothing to lose, even though it was the temp job or this other sort of higher quality publishing job? Why
Yeah, I think it was at that point. I was like, I have nothing to lose now. I just quit my job without having a secure job. So if I did that, then I can hold off for, 3 more months. I will say I've always been a person that saved and has like that back. So I did have for like 4 or 5 months that I would be just fine, even closing on this condo. So I knew I was going to be okay in that way. That helped a lot too. Just having a little bit of security, I wasn't like loaded, but I had that little bit of cushion that I think helped me. So I just thought, when am I going to do this? Like, it's gotta be right now. And it was really hard because they kept offering me more money at the other job.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, no. And I had a little bit moment of like, maybe I should go for this. I'm comfortable and I will know what I'm doing. The guy that I interviewed was like fantastic. But I thought to myself, no, just let's do this temp job. Like, this is the time. Right. And because it was travel research, it kind of combines a little bit of publishing. So that was comfortable for me too. So I just went for it. I said, whatever happens in the next 2 months. So it's great.
And it's interesting too that you said, if I don't change now, when am I going to ever change? It's not like you're an old woman. So
no, and this happened 10 years ago. So.
Right. So, for you to have even that perspective, like it, in a way, it wasn't really true, but again, there was something inside of you, I suppose, that was driving you to do this. And it's almost like, as you tell the tale, driving you relentlessly. I think that most people hearing this story out of the gate and not being in your head and not being in your shoes would say, you were crazy about 3 or 4 times during that process.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought I was crazy 4 or 5 times. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So did you ever in those moments have any fears?
Oh, yes. All the time. I didn't even tell my mother, I remember, that I had quit my job.
You didn't tell your mother you quit?
I didn't tell my mother for a while that I had quit my job. I was still living at home, about to close on the condo, but still not there. And then when I found the temp job, when I finally knew I was going to do the temp job, I was like, yes, I got another job. And she thought it was just another, great job with benefits. And I didn't give her the details of how it's a temp job and I might not have it in a few weeks. And, I was totally afraid because, in my family especially, we just work really hard and we're loyal and, that's just the way that I've been raised. And so to quit a job without having anything else, that would never happen to many people in my family. So,
wow. So that's also interesting. So you kind of went against your upbringing and this like inborn work ethic.
Yes. And that was the hardest, I think, for me because I was so used to, I've been working since I was 14 years old. And at that point, I'm like 26, 27. And so, I've never done anything like that. I've never quit a job without having something in line. I've always been prepared. So in that aspect, that was, I think, terrifying for me. Like, I'm just like, what am I doing? As soon as I quit the job, I was like, I am insane. What am I doing?
So it was like maybe an impulse that drove you to quit. But then since you did it, it was like you didn't go back and grovel for your job back, which you could have also done.
Yeah, no. Once I did it, I was pretty okay. I mean, I had moments where like I was meeting with HR and I was freaking out in my head and all my emotions were coming out, because, I'm crazy now. Right. I quit this job that that it's great. It's paying me. And now I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And, what I remember most about that meeting, I had a meeting with one of the HR people at the company. And what she said to me, she's like, you're going to be fine. And as soon as she said that, I'm like, right, I'm going to be fine. Like, why am I freaking out? And I think that was a good time, and this is like the set, I gave like a 3-week notice. So it's about that time where I'm going to go. And I thought to myself, yes, I'm going to be fine. And I think from that moment on, it was a little easier to,
right. You almost needed the external affirmation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, clearly you reinvented into something deliberately. You were always interested in the business of travel, and then you got your master's in travel business, and then you were looking for a job in travel. So yours was a very deliberate pivot, kind of based on something that you wanted to be when you were growing up.
Yeah.
So we'll say. So, for some people, they aren't that well planned, and you even got your master's. But what have you learned in hindsight about even pivoting into a direction that you thought you wanted to go into now that you're here?
Yeah, I think it was a good choice. Like, I think I knew, like you said, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get my master's in travel. I knew I wanted to be in the travel field. But there's also a lot of other things that I want to do also. But for me, I like that planning aspect. Whether it's, you don't necessarily have to get a master's in travel, but like right now, I'm interested in writing. So having a course in writing, you know what I mean? Doing a small course where you're not spending a ton of money, writing more.
Right.
But it has to be, like, for me especially, it has to be a deliberate thing. Otherwise, there's so many things in your heads that are like, no, you can't do this. Why are you doing this? This is silly. Who's going to read your stuff? That kind of stuff, right? So I think you have to have some kind of small plan, whether it's like a big, huge plan or small, or maybe you're not sure what you want to do. So then you try 10 million other, little things that you can do. So I think that's what I've learned. Like, in hindsight, did I have to get a master's in travel and tourism? Maybe not. But that was like my course, and that's what I needed. And, I don't regret doing it. But like right now, I'm interested in writing and doing all this stuff. Do I have to get a master's in writing? No, I know that now in hindsight. I just write and maybe take a course here and there.
Right.
So, that's what I learned, that everything doesn't have to be so elaborate.
Good.
But
in the moment in time that you're going through it, it does feel complex. And,
yes,
and when you're trying to pivot into the even if it's a known unknown, like you wanted to go into travel, but how you were going to get there, you didn't necessarily know.
I didn't know. And that's why I think the school was good for me, because I didn't know at that point. I wasn't sure how I was going to get into the travel and tourism industry.
Right.
So
and the school, right. So it was almost like the education didn't necessarily do it, but your contacts did, because that's
exactly. So my networking, it all worked out. Yeah.
So since you didn't tell mom what you were doing, did you receive support from any place else or anyone else?
I have a large family, so I have great cousins, and I'm really close to one of my cousins. So yeah, of course I told my friends and my cousins, and actually this girl that works with me now, that I moved to her over here eventually to Focusrite, she was working at Wiley also. So she was there when I went through my freak out. She was totally there the whole step out. And she's like, no, it's great. You're doing great. You're doing the right thing. So she was a great support. So I had other people, I just think with mom, I just need to keep her calm.
Right. No, I mean, a lot of times I think it's hardest to tell our loved ones. They're closest to us, and you don't want them to worry, and you don't want them to compound your freak out.
Yes, exactly. Right. Because she's going to be like, well, how are you going to pay for this condo you just bought? All the questions that I already had in my head, but I didn't need anybody to keep, ask that.
Right. Exactly. So in terms of, you mentioned your networking really paid off. What other tools or resources or technology did you use? You mentioned that you emailed everybody.
I emailed everyone, and I am talking about everyone, like alumni, old bosses, my teachers, like, I think one of the things that aren't used as much that people don't understand is alumni networking. Because people, as soon as you're like, I'm from your school, they really want to help you.
Right.
And so, yeah, so just reaching out to your alumni group or going to alumni events and meeting up with people is such a great tool because, they really, really, really do want to help you. I did a lot of writing. Like, I wrote my goals out. I wrote what I wanted to do. I think doing that is just an affirmation for yourself. And then it's written down somewhere, these are my goals. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but these are my goals,
Do you ever revisit that and, see how
I do, and it was great. It's great because it's exactly where kind of I ended up,
That's awesome.
I had simple goals at that time. I just knew I wanted to be in the travel industry and I wanted to, in that industry, travel a lot. And here I am. That's what I'm doing. So it ended up being really, really, exactly what I wanted to do. So,
but like if somebody had said, fill in the blank, you will end up fill in the blank, it probably wouldn't be this because it wouldn't be something that you'd think of. I mean, it's in the travel space that you're working for.
Right. But it wasn't necessarily what I thought I was like. I didn't think that I would be combining kind of my fields.
Right.
Because, right now I'm in charge of publishing and the publishing aspect of the research that we do. So that was a surprise to me. It was a pleasant surprise because I was like, oh, so this is why I went through that.
Right.
Those
right.
steps.
It's almost like life makes sense now. But
it's like a little puzzle that just came together. And that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's been the most rewarding part about your reinvention?
Knowing that I can do it, like that I've done it, that I could have stayed in publishing for 20 years and who knows, been miserable or, like I would probably be very bored. But it's great to me that I did this, it's amazing that I got to this point, I think. Right. That I took all the right steps, and that's what I've been trying to do since, because of course then you get comfortable here too, right? So I'm really comfortable. I've been here 9 years. So I have to keep telling myself, there's follow your other goals, because just as this came together, your other goals will come together, Do
you mean like life goals?
Yeah, life goals and other stuff that I want to do. Career-wise also, just doing other things because I'm very happy here.
Right.
I'm comfortable, but I'm also very happy, which I wasn't at my, other job. So that's been great. But, like I said, I want to do more writing. I want to, maybe possibly in the future own something of my own, like a business or something. So there's a lot of things that I want to do. That I feel like now is the time to kind of pivot again, do little pivots and do those things. So I have to remind myself like what I did before and that I kind of need to take those similar steps so I can get to those places that I want to do.
Right. Like I ask the question sometimes, once you reinvent once, does it make the next reinvention easier, do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's just as scary now, right? I have debts. I'm still in my condo. I still have the mortgage. It doesn't make it easier, but that's why I try to remind, myself that it happened once. So, it's okay. It's okay if you need to do it again. I think now, though, I would do baby steps. Other than, quit my job and let's figure it out.
Right.
Kind of thing, which I did. And that was great. I was younger. It was a great time for me to do it, I think. And I'm so glad I did it. But now I would do little small pivots, baby steps towards what I need to do. But I don't think it gets easier. It didn't for me, but.
Right. What do you think were some of the worst mistakes that you made along the way?
Oh, goodness. not listening to myself more, not listening to my gut, you know, being in my head too much. Because sometimes you just, those were the times and the choices that I made that I really went with my gut. Because if I put it on paper, it didn't make any sense.
Right.
Temp benefits. And again, they kept offering me more money. It made no sense if I put it on paper, and I'm always kind of like in my head, in my mind. But listening to myself, I would say do that more. Now I try to tell myself, because I'm still in my head many times.
Right. Yep.
Just listening to what you really want is huge. You know?
I think that's a great segue to, you know, giving some specific advice to people who might be considering reinvention. So maybe we'll make that, if I ask you for 3 things, one would be listening to your own advice and listening to your gut. What would one, you know, 2 other recommendations that they can act upon now?
Specifics?
Yeah.
Have a plan. Whether it's small or big, have a plan. Like, you know, if you want to do events or want to get into that field, there's a bunch of like courses online. Do baby steps, courses that are $25, or start very small. If you want to bartend, take a class, you know, just make a plan of action. Because really when you're in the world, then you'll know, is this really what I want to do? Because sometimes you think you want to do something, but then you're in it and you're like, no, this is not for me. So make specific action plans. I think that really helps you to, you know, get to where you want to get to.
Yep. Excellent. And, you know, do you think reinvention is for everyone?
Yes. I think everyone should take time to to just look at their life and see what else they can do. I don't think anybody is, like I said, I love my job right now. I reinvented myself already, but I would love to do it again, because we get too comfortable and we get too complacent, kind of like, you know, on what we have, but we can have more, or we could do other passions. We don't have to be in one passion. You can do 2 or 3 things. There's no limit. So I don't think there's any limit to changing. Ever. You could be 95.
There are stories about, you know, octogenarians who are going back into the workforce.
See, and that's great to me, because I don't think you should set or have a specific, or if I'm not if I'm not doing something that I want to do by 45, then that's it. No, I don't believe in that. To me, that's crazy talk.
Right.
So you always have time. You always have a chance. Always.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to flip us back to the deck one more time to wrap this up. This was really excellent, Elizabeth. You shared so many good things. This is how anybody who wants to get in touch with you can reach you. Your email is your first initial and last name _4@hotmail.com, Cepeda _4@hotmail.com. And if anybody watching this wants to learn more about us and Reinvention Works and all of the content that we have and all the advice and information, you can watch recordings of our past webcasts. They're free on our website. You can sign up for our email newsletter. You can join the community with other reinventionists who are talking reinvention, and you can shop in our educational store where we have videos that are for sale from subject matter experts who focus on how to get you through the reinvention journey. So that is how we are going to let everybody else join us. And we are back, so I'm going to say good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, everyone.
I hope you don't have too late of a night getting home.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Bye.
You're a great guest. Bye now.
Bye.